Hi, I'm Toni Priddey, Director and Consultant at First Maths and also an advisor at Teach Active. I work alongside the team at Teach Active to ensure that the resources that are provided are challenging children appropriately within the national curriculum. I'm here to talk to you about how to use Teach Active Maths alongside the resources that you are currently using to deliver your national curriculum for mathematics. First, let us take a look at the key features of Teach Active. So when you are ready to get started with Teach Active Maths, you start on the left-hand side of the screen and choose the year group that you are working in or the year group that you're wanting to consolidate. You will then choose the area of maths that you're looking to work on, and then you get the option to filter by objective. Once you've done that, you can see that your lessons appear underneath your filters. The activities can then be adapted to support the learner's needs, so you can think about how to make those questions more challenging. And within the programme, we've added activities to challenge children's thinking at a greater depth. This all builds on your core teaching. You can use this within your teaching, or you can use it to consolidate areas that you have already taught within your mathematics lessons. Within my work as a mathematics consultant, my main aim is to develop a love and understanding of mathematics for the children, but also the adults that work with the children. And that's why I really love Teach Active. The activities are fun, they're engaging, the children really get involved in the activities that they are working on. And there are a range of ways in which you can use these activities. So we'll go through each of these in turn, but what I'm going to look at for the remainder of the session is the different ways that you can use Teach Active. So you can use it initially to provide assessment opportunities, and then once you have identified any gaps that children have got, you can use those activities to plug the gaps for the children. You can use Teach Active activities to pre-teach any children who are lacking in confidence, or you can consolidate learning for children who are not fully secure with the content within a lesson. They can support your daily fluency sessions if you have those built into your school day, or they can be used as lesson starters. You can use them within your maths lessons to give children additional opportunity to practice and apply their skills. You can then use, once you've finished teaching a topic, you can then continue to develop the children's confidence and retention. So you can come back to those activities that you've really enjoyed using and just ensure that the children are retaining those skills. And as I said at the beginning of this slide, we really want to develop a love of mathematics for the children as they're working through these activities. Although there will be times where children do have to sit written assessments, I want to look a little bit more in detail about how Teach Active can be used to support assessment opportunities within the classroom. So we could, for example, have a child who is in year 1 who's maybe able to solve something like 8 add 4 and get that right answer. They might be counting on their fingers, they might be drawing dots or something like that. But what we might want them to do by the end of a unit of work is to be able to bridge, to be able to add 8 add 4. So if a child is completing a written assessment and giving us the right answer, we might not know how they achieve that answer. So often opportunities to assess children while they're engaged in activities can give us a lot more information about how children are tackling those questions. So again, within the Teach Active activities, we can be giving children activities to tackle and looking at maybe the discussions they're having with their partner, what methods they're using, how quickly are they able to get that answer, are they getting it efficiently using the methods that we would want them to. Do they need any support to be able to answer those questions? And are they able to talk to their partner about how they have solved the questions that we have given them within the activities? So we can use this as a pre-assessment, or we could use it within our teaching, or as a post-assessment at the end of an objective or the end of a unit of work. So the example that I've got up on the screen now is from an activity called multiplication trail, and the children have to answer the questions, and then the answer is in the card that they have to go and run and find. So if they've calculated 23 multiplied by 4, they will then have to go and find the card 92 and then solve the next question and go and find the next card after that. So the activities can be used to support us with making those assessments, but the children are not sat down, they're active, they're enjoying it, they're hopefully talking to their partners about how they've done it, and we can be making those assessments as the children are taking part in the game. And hopefully they're seeing it as a game, they're enjoying it, but we're able to make those assessments at the same time. Once we have completed our assessments and identified any gaps in children's knowledge and understanding, we can use the Teach Active activities to plug any identified gaps that we have found. We can use our filtering tool again to find the suitable activities. So you can see on the screen that I have filtered for Year 5, multiplication and division, and then prime numbers is the area that I want to work on. You can see the range of activities there that we could use to support the children with developing their understanding of prime numbers. So they can be used again within the lesson, or we could have some group intervention or one-to-one intervention with another adult delivering those sessions. So that could be within your fluency sessions. You could take that little group of children who are maybe still struggling with prime numbers and give them opportunity to develop their understanding even further. We can then evaluate the children's understanding of those areas, and we can then reassess to see if they have plugged the gap in understanding, and obviously that cycle can then continue. The other thing that I wanted us to be aware about is the opportunity to track back as well. So if children are struggling with prime numbers, are they secure with other areas of multiplication and division, or do we need to track back to Year 2, Year 3, Year 4 to try and develop the children's understanding of multiplication and division further before we then go to work on our prime numbers? And you can see on the screen here, I've put the ready to progress grid on the screen, which shows us those key areas that children need to be secure with. So we can use again the Teach Active resources to plug those gaps in those key areas that we are hoping to develop the children's understanding of at the end of each year group. But if they are struggling within, say, Year 5, it is worth going back to Year 4, Year 3 within the Ready to Progress guidance and using the Teach Active resources to try and plug the children's understanding in those areas before moving on to the current year group. The Teach Active activities can also be used as pre-teach and consolidation activities. And depending on the time of year when you are watching this training video, you might be aware or might not be aware of those children who are maybe needing an additional boost in confidence or need additional modelling prior to teaching a lesson. So we can, if you are looking at this video at the beginning of an academic year, the assessments that have come from your previous teacher might have identified those children who are on the borderline of expected. They just need a little additional boost before the lesson to maybe build their confidence so that they can access your maths lessons fully. Or you might be watching this within a year and you know there are children who are able to participate in your maths lessons, but they just need that additional confidence boost before coming into a new topic, for example. So the activity I've got on screen here is called Human Abacus, and the children take part in abacus activities where you'll have a hundreds, tens and ones card displayed within the hall, for example, and children are either given number cards to make numbers, or you could use an amount of children to make that number. So it's a nice activity to do with your whole class, but also it could be used as that pre-teach activity for those children who need that little bit of an extra boost. Or it might be that as you've been teaching a lesson, you're noticing those children who are not quite getting the concept, and then you can do a post-teach activity either with yourself or with another adult if you have one, to be able to work with your children, and they could complete a similar activity. But again, the active nature of the activity will hopefully engage the children in really thinking about where they've got to be positioned within the abacus rather than just thinking of those digits. So they're actually getting involved in being that digit themselves. So hopefully it will develop their confidence. We can also use these activities within our daily fluency sessions, and as I mentioned before, we would use the Ready to Progress guidance to try and support us with which activities to build into our fluency sessions. And within First for Maths, when I'm working with my schools, we are trying to advocate a 15-minute fluency session each day, and I think the Teach Active resources are brilliant for those to be able to filter down. So you can see again on the screen, I've got the multiplication and division for Year 4, which is a huge objective for our Year 4 teachers and our Year 4 children, with having the multiplication tables check at the end of their academic year. So those multiplication activities, they would be coming through the whole of the year and really supporting the children developing their confidence with those different activities. So when I'm working with my schools, building the Teach Active activities into a unit of work, we look at the progression within an objective and where those activities will fit. So on the screen, I have got the progression in recalling the 2 times table for year 2 children. So initially they would just need to understand the link between addition and multiplication and maybe build the 2 times table with resources, with diagrams, with maybe use some Numicon, use some multi-link towers and get the children to really understand that repeated nature of the 2 times tables. We'd maybe then want them to write the 2 times tables and they can still use those resources and diagrams to support them. And then we want them to start to be able to recall them. And this is where I think the Teach Active activities really come in to support the children in reciting those times tables, recalling them in order, out of order. And then they can start to reason about the numbers that will appear in the 2 times table. And you can see there I've then got the opportunity to challenge children at greater depth. So they have to be able to reason outside the times tables that they know. So they might know that 2 multiplied by 10, they might know 2 multiplied by 12, but I would want them to then start reasoning about whether 95 is going to appear in the 2 times table. They might then have to answer more multi-step problems. So the activity I've got on the screen here, I can show you how that can be put in the middle part of the mastery level, or it can be used at greater depth. So I've chosen the Barmy Army activity. So we can have the children walking around the hall, walking around outside, and they're just going to start off saying the numbers 1 to 20 first of all, but very quietly. So they'll be saying 1, 2, 3, 4, continuing up to 20 to say those numbers quietly. And then I'm going to ask them to say the multiples of 2 really loud. So they're going to be then counting up, doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 as they're walking around, and they're going to be marching as they're doing that. And we can start to think about then asking those children, which numbers do you think we're going to be shouting on? What do you notice about those numbers that we are shouting on? And they can start to spot a pattern in the numbers that we are being louder on. We could mark them on 100 square if we wanted to as well, so we could have that there for the children. They can start to spot those patterns. We could then ask children, if we're wanting to go into that greater depth, will we be shouting on the number 95? And asking those children who are ready to start reasoning at that level whether we would be shouting or not. The thing with this activity, you can take that even further. Children might want to start adding actions in. We've had that before where children have been jumping on multiples of 10. So we can be marching around and we can be doing our quietly. We can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then jumping on the 10 and shouting 10. So why were we jumping on the 10 and shouting at 10? Because 10 is a multiple of 10, but it's also a multiple of 2. And we can get the children again to start doing it. They'll want to do different actions. They'll want to spin around on multiples of 5. So we'll have to make sure they're watching where they're going. So they'll be spinning, jumping and shouting on 10. And why are we doing that? Because 10 is a multiple of 5, it's a multiple of 10, and it's also a multiple of 2. So hopefully the children, we can use that in their fluency sessions like we just had on the previous slide. They can be doing that in fluency once they've learned that. But again, within our maths lessons, we can see that that slots in really nicely into the progression within learning the 2 times table in year 2. So hopefully you can already see how the Teach Active activities will support retention and revision. And you can see how that's built through. We can do that daily, we can do that at the end of an objective, we can do that at the end of a unit of work. But for end of key stage revision, you might want to track back to previous year groups to ensure that children have retained all of that content that will be assessed. So you can have the opportunity to do that. I've already talked about doing that within the Ready to Progress materials. You can do that within your fluency sessions and try and track back in that way. But as we're starting to get to the end of the year, I really like the Maths Hunt activity. So this can be done before SATs, it can be done within any unit of work. But again, I think it's a nice way for children to revise all of the things that they have already learnt. And we have a chart there where the children are going to put their answers, and this can be done in an orienteering fashion where the clues are hidden around the playground, around the school field. The children have to run and go and find the different clues and then answer them in their grid. So that can be a nice activity to do, and you can build in past SATs questions if you want to as you're starting to get near to SATs, and children can still use the same activity. But if you've identified a gap and you've already used the Teach Active activity activities, you can always start to build in some of those SATs questions as well. So you can still keep the same game and adapt the questions to meet the needs of the children. So I think, as you've probably gathered, this is my favourite reason to use Teach Active Maths, to build a love of maths for our children and the adults that are working with them. So you can see that the activities are active and fun for the children, but also that they have got that opportunity for modelling. So with the human abacus activity, for example, the children are really looking at the hundreds, the tens, the ones, they're looking at the columns, they're looking at the value of the digits and being engaged in that activity. The other parts of Teacher Active that I really like are to have the popular maths lessons. So if lots of teachers are using a similar maths activity from Teach Active, they'll come up in our popular maths lessons plans, as you can see on the screen there. And you can go into Year 4 and you can see Barmy Armies in there, and then Array of Sunshine. That's a really nice activity where you can take a number of cones outside and you've got to make those different arrays with those cones, and questioning the children as you are working on those. So why can't we make an array with 8 in a row, and looking at the fact that we will have 4 left over. You can also favourite your lessons as well. So if you've got activities that you know that you like using, or activities that went really well, really engage the children, and you want to keep coming back to them for attention purposes or for intervention for children who need it, you can favourite those lessons. So hopefully I have given you a range of ways in which you can use Teach Active to enhance your current provision, and hope you're looking forward to going and using them with your children. Thank you for listening.